Welcome to Slash Bash, where today I am bringing you another Entitled Parents Reddit video. Grandma attempts to ruin our Christmas. This story is about my paternal grandmother. Let's call her Grandma Fuhrer. It takes place over the course of about 1 year in the blessed pre-COVID times. Before we get into it, however, let's give you some background on Grandma Fuhrer and my relationship with her. Grandma Fuhrer owns 2 houses next to the school I attended before leaving my hometown to study at university. My dad used to pay me to do some chores around her house. She wasn't able to do them herself because of some disabilities stemming from long-term alcoholism. I've heard stories about her borderline abusive behavior from different family members, and I know she was divorced 5 times. While working for her, I quickly realized how difficult she could be, but I always thought my family members were exaggerating. That was until this story happened, so let's get into it. Back in the summer of 2018, I was visiting my parents in my hometown. I had been living elsewhere for about 3 years at that point. I decided to visit Grandma Fuhrer as I had a pretty good relationship with her back then. I was one of the few family members that was actively in contact with her for other than financial reasons, and she seemed excited about my visit as we hadn't seen each other in person for about a year. When I called her to set up the time and date, she asked me whether it was possible for me to borrow my mom's car to help her pick up some furniture. She wanted to add a room for a live-in housekeeper. I agreed and cleared everything with my mom as I thought it wouldn't be much trouble. The day came and my grandma picked up so much furniture it barely fit into the car, but everything seemed fine. I carried the furniture into the designated room through 3 very narrow staircases. It was a very old house in Germany. Afterwards, we had some coffee and cake together before I left. I then dropped off my mom's car and headed out to party with some friends from school who I hadn't seen in a while. The next day was when everything began. In the morning, I was still slightly hungover from the great party the night before. At around 9 a.m., Grandma Fuhrer called me demanding to know where I was, since I apparently agreed to help her assemble the furniture we bought. This was never agreed upon. She also demanded that I would bring the car again as she had forgotten to pick up some things the day before. The car, however, wasn't even in town, since my mom needed it that day and had already left. I tried to explain to her that the car wasn't available that day, that we had made no agreement about me helping her out today, and that I was in no shape to drive or build furniture even if I wanted to. I did offer to reschedule to help another day that week, but she wouldn't have it. She couldn't accept that it was literally impossible for me to fulfill her request, and the debate got heated. I don't remember specifics, but she tried to guilt trip me, which is when I snapped, and I told her that I wasn't her flying monkey here to serve at her pleasure. She hung up after that, and I thought that would be that. Over the course of the week, I tried calling her several times since I still wanted to help, but wasn't able to reach her before I had to go back to my university town. Fast forward to Christmas 2018. I was back at my parents' place for the holidays, and the last interaction I had with Grandma Fuhrer was the phone call I just described. On Christmas Eve, my dad told me that my grandma would be joining us for dinner, as was tradition, and that she wanted me to pick her up. Now, due to my dad's job, it was up in the air whether he would be able to join us that evening, so he added that Grandma Fuhrer would only attend if he was also there. In case he wasn't, I was just supposed to pick up the presents from her place. As it turned out, Dad had to work that night, so I just went and picked up the bag of presents. This was an ordeal in itself. I drove to Grandma Fuhrer's place, parked in front of it, rung the doorbell, and waited for her to open the door. This usually could take a while, since her house is big and she isn't the fastest anymore due to the aforementioned disabilities. After a longer time than usual, I called her landline to inform her I was there. She picked up and told me she was still in the bathroom and would be right there. It took her about 10 minutes to get to the door, though it usually takes like 1, during which I was waiting in the snowy streets at -5 degrees Celsius, 23 degrees Fahrenheit for my American friends. When she came to the door, she handed me the bag of presents for my parents and brothers. She also asked me to wish everyone a happy Christmas and added that she was hoping I would enjoy my present. I thanked her, said my goodbyes, and drove back to my parents' place to enjoy Christmas Eve. The evening came, we had dinner with my mom, her mother, a lovely woman, and my 2 younger brothers. We had already unwrapped most of the presents before dinner, as we usually do. All in all, a very pleasant and typical Christmas Eve for my family. After dinner, we started drinking homemade mulled wine when I remembered I still had Grandma Fuhrer's gifts and I handed them out. My brothers and I each received an envelope with a card in it, but suspiciously, mine differed in size and color. While my brothers each received a complimenting message with €50 enclosed in the card, I received a scalding letter saying my grandma was still devastated by my behavior the previous summer, and that she was expecting an apology for the disrespectful way I had treated her. Admittedly, I had snapped and said something that could have been taken as disrespectful, but I continued to reach out, wanting to help her while I was in town. I didn't really know how to react. I was speechless and threw the card on the table before going to grab another mug of mulled wine. When I got back from the kitchen, the older of my 2 younger brothers had read the card and loudly exclaimed something akin to, "What the actual flip?" At that point, everyone had noticed something was wrong and I read the card out loud. I then told them about what happened during the summer. Nobody could really believe how insane Grandma Fuhrer was, especially since she had been quietly planning her revenge for about half a year. My brother, who had some extra money due to a paid internship, asked the youngest of us 3 whether he needed the €50 and offered to pay it himself, as he wanted to take all 3 cards and throw them into Grandma Fuhrer's face. My youngest brother refused the monetary offer but loved the idea, so that's what they did. I don't really know what happened afterwards. All I know is that Grandma Fuhrer was not expecting that reaction, as apparently no one in our family had ever stood up to her the way we did. We didn't really dwell on the topic for the rest of the holidays and still had an amazing celebration together. Fast forward to the summer of 2019. My parents had planned a big family reunion to celebrate a couple of important dates in their lives, major birthdays plus a significant wedding anniversary. That party was the first time I interacted with Grandma Fuhrer since the Christmas incident. I acted as if nothing had happened, since I didn't want to cause a scene on my parents' special day with most of our extended family being there. This was a rare occasion, since our family is spread around the Western world. We were together for about a week in my hometown, going to different dinner places every night and had a great and memorable time. I even got along with Grandma Fuhrer, albeit superficially and only in group settings. We never talked one-on-one. One evening we were having dinner at a really nice place and she came over to the table me, my brothers, and my cousin sat at. They all knew what had happened during the previous Christmas and were pretty angry with her. She asked whether I was willing to visit her one-on-one so we could have a talk about what happened. I was happy to, as I don't like to hold on to grudges, but asked her that we talk at eye level, like adults with mutual respect. She agreed. A day later, I received an email from her stating that she no longer had any interest in a conversation, as it was apparent from my demands that I hadn't grown and wasn't ready to apologize. She also wrote that she wasn't able to speak to me on eye level as she had much more life experience than me. Again, I didn't really know how to process this. I still don't, but enough time has passed that I have stopped caring about my relationship with her. Up to this day, nothing has really changed about the situation. I have seen her a couple of times at different family gatherings since then, and the interactions were fine. Probably because neither of us wants to dig this crap back up during otherwise great family times, but the issue itself was never really resolved. So yeah, that's the story about how I learned that the reported insanity of my grandmother was not exaggerated. I'm very happy that I have the rest of my loving and supporting family to rely on, but it's still something that has changed me in a way, so I felt like sharing. This is John from /bash. Thanks for watching. If you've enjoyed the video, think about subscribing. I'd love for you to drop a like, share it with your friends, and I'll see you in the next one.